Okay, let's learn about lubrication and bearings. In this is a part of module 5. So in this we have learnt about rolling contact bearings. Okay, and now we will start with the second part of the chapter, that is lubrication and bearings. Basically, part of the energy supplied to every machine is always lost because of frictional resistance between the moving parts of the machine. The important frictional forces are sliding friction and rolling friction. Sliding friction is the resistance to motion when the contacting surfaces of two solids move relatively with each other. That is, when you have one surface and you have another surface like this, when they have movement among each other, then it is called, when one body slides about the second body, then such friction is called sliding friction. Then we will come to rolling friction. This is the rolling friction, wherein it is the resistance to motion when the solid and hollow cylindrical surfaces move relatively to each other. That is, we have seen the anti-friction bearings or rolling contact bearings. Okay, so that is rolling contact bearings. They are essentially the rolling, they were in rolling contact or anti-friction bearings, we have got rolling friction. Of course, friction is a enemy for all mechanical design engineers. So therefore, we need to eliminate the friction, or we cannot eliminate in many cases. So we need to reduce the friction to as less an amount as possible. So to overcome the problems of friction, because friction induces temperature, and temperature will reduce the efficiency of all the parts, all the moving parts of the machine. So therefore, it is our job to reduce friction in case of mechanical components. So therefore, to overcome the friction, we need to have what is called as lubrication. Lubrication is the art of reducing frictional resistance, okay, by means of some kind of substance. All right, so by means of some substance, and this substance is called lubricant. All right, so that is, we need to reduce friction in many cases. To overcome the effects of friction, or we need to reduce friction. Okay, so we are going to have a substance between the moving parts, and that substance is called a lubricant. So common lubricants are the oils or grease. Are you there? So therefore, we have basically a friction. So we have basically two types of friction. One is the sliding friction and another is the rolling friction. So the overcome or the lubrication is the art of reducing the frictional resistance between the parts. So to reduce friction between the parts, we use a substance, and this substance is called a lubricant. Lubricant can be oils or greases. Now let's look at the various types of lubricants. Let's look at types of lubricants. So we have basically liquid lubricants, solid lubricants, and third one is semi-liquid lubricants. In case of liquid lubricants, we have got mineral oil, animal oil, vegetable oil, etc. Okay, vegetable oil, etc. In case of solid lubricants, we have mica, talcum powder or talc. They are solid lubricants, and semi-liquid lubricants, which is very familiar to us, that is in general called as grease. So essentially, in types of lubricants, we have liquid lubricants in the form of mineral oil and vegetable oil, solid lubricants such as mica and talc, and semi-liquid lubricants such as grease. Now let us look at the various functions of lubricants. So what these lubricants do essentially is what we need to see. So let's look at the basic functions of lubricants. Functions of lubricants. Let's look at. So as we discussed earlier, first is to reduce friction. To reduce friction, that is the first function of any lubricant. Then to reduce wear and tear of parts. Wear and tear of parts has to be reduced, and then it also acts as coolant. That means the job of coolant is to take away the heat that is generated because of friction. Friction is generated because of sliding or rolling contact between the parts. Then it also protects the part from rust and corrosion. So that is another function of a lubricant, and also it will act as seal for escape of gases. And next is, it will also act as a damper, that is it reduces noise and vibration of moving parts, and also it will clean the surfaces to some extent. So these are all the basic functions of any lubricant. Basically, it is used to reduce the friction, to reduce wear and tear of the parts. It acts as a coolant. It will prevent rust and corrosion of parts. It will act as a seal for escape of gases. It reduces noise and vibration. Essentially, it acts as a damper. That is, it offers resistance for vibration. Then it will also clean the surfaces. So this is about functions of lubricants. Okay, so now let us look at the properties of any lubricant. That is, properties of lubricants. This you can remember in the form of Vf square VCO. That is essentially, V stands for viscosity. First one is viscosity, that's one of the properties of the lubricants. Then comes flash point. Then comes fire point of the lubricant. Then comes volatility of the lubricant. Then comes, you have carbon residue, and last one is oiliness. These are the properties of lubricants. So viscosity, as we know, it is resistance to flow. Any lubricant should have good viscosity, and also it should not lose its viscosity because of temperature or pressure. Then comes flash point. So flash point, as we have conducted experiments in our engines lab, wherein we have found out it is the minimum temperature. It is a minimum temperature at which an oil gives off sufficient vapor to ignite. So that is flash point. Then the fire point is the lowest temperature at which an oil gives off sufficient vapor to burn continuously at least 5 seconds on introduction of flame. Then comes volatility. When working at higher temperatures, some oils vaporize, leaving behind a thick residual oil having lubricating properties such as increased viscosity. A good lubricant should have low volatility. Then comes carbon residue. At higher temperature, the lubricants decompose, depositing certain amount of carbon on the surfaces. So the deposition of this carbon residue on the bearing surfaces is objectionable. Hence, a good lubricant should not deposit, that is, it should not deposit carbon residue on the surfaces. And the last property of the lubricant is the oiliness. The lubricating oil should have ability to adhere to, that is, it has to get stuck to, adhere to the surfaces so as to always maintain the lubrication or oil film between the rubbing surfaces. So that is what is called as oiliness. A good lubricant should have oiliness enough to adhere to surfaces even at high temperatures. Alright, so let's understand all the properties once again. A viscosity of the lubricant should not change with temperature and pressure. Of course, that is the theoretical requirement. Practically it may not happen. So flash point, fire point, or the point at which it will continuously start burning. And then the volatility, it should have low volatility rate. Carbon residue is the deposition of carbon on the surfaces. So the lubricant should not deposit such carbon residue. And then oiliness is the adherence of oil film on the surfaces, and the oiliness or the adherence of oil should not be disturbed even at high temperature. These are all the properties of lubricant. Okay, so next let's look at what is a bearing. So far we have seen what a lubricant is, and then we'll look at a bearing. What is a bearing? So as we know, bearing is a machine element which supports another moving element known as journal. It permits relative motion between the contact surfaces of the members while carrying the load. So this we have seen in case of rolling contact bearings, wherein you have got the steel balls or rollers, and this is the inner ring and this is the outer ring. So it essentially supports a shaft, helps in taking up both radial load and axial or thrust load. So bearing is a machine element which supports another moving element, that is shaft, alright, and also takes up the loads such as radial and axial loads. Alright, so let's recap what we have learnt so far. So far what we have learnt is, we learnt about friction and types of friction, that is sliding contact. What is the other one? Rolling contact. Okay, or sliding friction, and another one is rolling friction. Okay, and then lubrication is the next thing that we have learned. So lubrication is the art of reducing frictional resistance by means of some substance, and this substance is called what? Is called a lubricant. Alright, then we learnt about the types of lubricant. Types of lubricant we learnt about. So types are solid, liquid and semi-liquid. These are the three types of lubricants that we have studied. Solid lubricant can be in the form of mica or talc. Liquid lubricant can be in the form of vegetable oil or mineral oil. Semi-liquid lubricant is the grease in general terms. Then after this we learnt about the functions of lubricant, correct? So functions of lubricant were to reduce friction, then to reduce wear and tear of parts, then it acts as a coolant, then it protects part from rust and corrosion, and then it also reduces noise and vibration, and also it protects the part from, or it helps in escape of gases, acts as a sealant. So these are all functions. Then we learnt about the properties of lubricant. So what are the properties? Vf square, VCO, that is viscosity, flash point, fire point, then we have volatility, carbon residue,